back to Cards and Comics, guys. Today I want to talk about Fanatics Fest. Oh yes, coming up in August, we've got this new show that's a direct competition for the National, even though they say they're not. We got a show with 350 plus dealers, which is very similar in size to the National. But it's going to be different. It's going to be a one-of-a-kind event that the hobby has never seen before. So I'm going to give you my opinion. It also kind of reinforces some of the things I thought Fanatics would do when they bought all these licenses and companies, and it kind of does make sense. But also I want to kind of give you my 2 cents on the things I think are good, bad, or just things I want to discuss. Now, one thing you might notice, I'm dressed a little different than normal. I don't have my traditional hat. My work today had us executives take glamour shots, photos, professional photos for websites and magazines and things like that. As a globetrotting food safety expert, I'm used to it. It's another day in the neighborhood for us. We're high in demand. Our photos. I'm sure the next GQ or that magazine even be made today. Whatever. I'm sure there's a high demand for food safety expert photos out there. So anyway, that's what happened today. So I thought I'd show off the digs because I get to wear this like once a year. It was kind of fun. All right, moving on to Fanatics Fest. So a lot of things I learned about Fanatics Fest I got from Jeff Wilson's interview with Lance Finsterman, and you can see Jeff is super excited about it. A landmark show is coming. It's like he's almost very sleepy in this video. He talks about it, and the number one thing he really kind of compares to, and it makes sense because Finsterman's claim to fame is he developed or helped create New York Comic Con. And New York Comic Con is kind of an institution. It's basically the number 2 show to San Diego Comic Con. So if the National's number 1, then is Fanatics Fest in New York City going to be number 2? Just like it's New York City Comic Con is number 2 to San Diego Comic Con. Maybe that's what they're going for. A lot of synergy there, right? So, let's talk about Comic Cons in general, just as kind of as a comparison, because, he makes it very clear in this video and in other comments he's made that that's the inspiration. Comic Cons. The other inspiration is like the NFL experience at the Super Bowl, where you have kids, running around, catching balls, doing a 40-yard dash and all that stuff. So that's the inspiration. And he does mention that they've stolen from the best. They're not recreating or creating anything new. It's really just stealing what works, and that's smart, right? That's how you develop something. Then you riff on that as you kind of get it better and better over time. So that's a perfectly reasonable way of coming up with a new idea for a show. Now, Comic Cons have had issues. New York City in particular has had issues with the giveaways, making sure that it's fair. There's been a lot of complaining about it. That it's basically they're backdoored or they're never really given out. They're given out to influencers and no one else. So they need to not do that. They need to come up with a fair way to distribute. If they're going to have all these goodies and drops, they talk about drops at the show, with apparel, things like that. So they should do something to make it equitable and for everyone to get a shot at it. Secondly, is New York City Comic Con's had issues with autograph guests. For example, Peach Momoko, was hiding under her table because of, unruly fans and kind of her being scared. And to me, like if you have autograph guests that are too scared to sign autographs, that's a problem with the show. So, again, you can say, well, that's not these guys' fault. It's just something that has happened at shows. And so it's something for them to learn from. So, well, they fix some of those things for Fanatics Fest. So let's talk about Fanatics Fest a little bit. So it's August 16th through the 18th. Tickets are $50 starting. So if you hit the buy tickets, you're going to go to here. And, okay, once we have cookies on. But anyway, I don't really see, you get a 3-day pass. You get adult tickets. There's VIP for $400. I mean, so like there's some options here. Let's see on more details. So if you get a VIP pass, you get access to all 3 days. That's a 3-day show. First access to the show floor on on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Skip the line access to exclusive. So if you want exclusives, you're going to have to probably buy this because, again, in the past, exclusive either sold out super quick or they were kind of backdoored to other people. So people didn't really get to do it. You got $25 of fan cash and then $25 credit Fanatics Live. The one thing I don't like about it is they keep throwing up their Fanatics Sportsbook all the time. They cross reference that all the time. So when I get on this rant about like sports cards and gambling, it's hard not to see them as fanatics driving that connection when they're giving you to attend a show like this, credit to use on a sports book. I just feel like that's a little distasteful, in my opinion. It's just something I don't like. Your mileage might vary on that, but I don't really like that. So let's go to the show features, right? So what's the show about? So you've got autographs, you've got immersive brand and league activations. That's where you get your drops for different, types of apparel. You got a main stage and center stage. We'll talk about that in a second. Fanatics Superstore, so they're selling all their swag. Lifestyle Zone. So the thing I find interesting that 7 boxes down is the collector zone for people who want to go to the show. Then they have a collector's workshop stage, which if you even read it, it says you're going to have collecting 101, how to turn your hobby into a business, how to grade cards, how to get started in collecting. Ugh, yuck. And this goes back to the main theme here, and I'll get back to that in a second. Because you get the kids zone for the kids. Again, that's an NFL experience idea. And then a memorabilia museum, which I don't care about, honestly. Because when I go to shows, I'm looking for stuff for me to collect or cool deals, or I'm there to take my $50 or $100 if I'm there for 2 days and try to leave home and come back with something worthwhile. Just seeing other people's stuff, doesn't do it for me. But that's just me. So let's go back to this collector's workshop angle and these main stages and center stages, right? So, the main stage is going to have people giving talks like at Comic-Con, and they keep talking about this a lot. Lance talks about this a lot. He's like, we're going to have these panels, and they're going to be interactive. You can ask questions. And then, they're going to have Tom Brady and Derek Jeter and some of these really cool athletes up there. I think it's fine, to have this panel. But again, Tom Brady and Derek Jeter aren't signing autographs. And I would much rather pay $500 to go to a panel and get a Brady autograph on a helmet afterwards, right? Like, that would have been cool. That would have been fun. And because I think people would have been really excited about that. But they're not doing it. And I find it such a big missed opportunity because Fanatics has all these connections, all these people, all these deal makers, all these brands, all these licenses. And having Tom Brady, maybe it's just 50 people. Maybe they're going to do that, but it's not so far. They're not going to have him do autographs. I just found that I think that would have been a cool, huge get to have him signing autographs at the first Fanatics Fest, and they're not going to have it. And I feel like it's a big miss because I don't care enough about Tom Brady to just go hear him talk about his brand and his workout regime or vitamins or whatever he's hawking. This to me is not important, and so I won't go see that. I know some people will. Then you got your center stage, which has podcast. And I'm like, I don't really need to see a podcast live. The cool thing about podcasts is I can listen to them anytime I want. They don't have to see them live. And also, there's some guy like me talking into a microphone. That's not very interactive, and it's kind of boring. That's why listening to a podcast while you're driving or at home with headphones, it's a very passive activity. Why does it need to be on a center stage at a card show? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So if you look at guests, right? So we click here, and it goes into who the guests are, and it talks about Brady, Durant, Jeter, and they're not autographing because if they autographed, you would get this, right? From Sabrina Loneskew or Ionskew. Just interesting that they're again not getting these guys to autograph, but it's okay. That seems like such a missed opportunity. I don't understand why Gary Vee is giving a talk at all. The guy who pumped and dumped and abandoned the hobby. Why are we still listening to this guy? Why is he at the first Fanatics Fan Fest? I know he still has people who like him, but man, I feel like, and the reason why is this: on the main stage, for anyone who's up here, like you'll see, um, basically athletes. The one person who's sort of like non-athlete hobby representative is Gary Vee, not Marshall Fogel, not a long-time collector, not a long-time dealer, not someone who has tons of industry knowledge. It's kind of a huckster, a guy who pumped and dumped and who created a terrible brand, during the pandemic era that kind of like ripped people off, in my opinion, to some extent. So I just feel like that's the wrong guy to have up there. And I just think it's because they're looking for a name. They're trying to get more name recognition versus actually giving collectors that interactive experience to ask questions with someone with a lot of knowledge in the hobby, because I just don't feel like he's that guy. Um, so the one thing, going back to the show features here and why maybe the card show, which has got 350 plus dealers, is so listed low here, is here. Here's the thing that they're selling us here, guys. You hear a lot about experience, right? They think that coming to this event, that they're going to attract a lot of casual, say casual non-collectors and convert them to be collectors, right? So if you listen to the podcast, you listen to his interviews, read what they're saying, read what they said a long time ago. They talked about drops and creating kind of these very limited events to gather, people, to get people hyped up to be, in this space and be active, right? They talked about, events, photo ops, panels, these kind of like non-collecting activities to get people who are just, off the street. Because in their mind, they're gonna say, look, they're in New York City. There's going to be all these New York City football fans who just want to hear Eli Manning talk. They may not be card collectors, but they might just pay $50 to hear Eli Manning talk or Tom Brady talk, right? And then while they're there, they're going to like randomly stumble into a card show, and then or the collector's workshop, and then get converted into becoming a card collector or buy some memorabilia or whatever, right? This is kind of how they think. They think like, oh, like we're going to have this randos come into this event that don't collect, and then we're going to convert them at the show. That is truly what they think, because they want to grow the hobby 10x. That's what they've stated. So they are really hoping that they're going to get random people to come to the show for these events, these experiences, and they're going to convert them at the show to becoming card collectors. That to me is a very tall order. And then they talked about kids. They have a kid zone. In the interview with Jeff, he said something really weird. He's like, there is, kids who come to collect, and the dads don't want to collect, so they're going to go off and watch a panel or shop at some memorabilia or do some other activities while the kid's at the show. Or it's going to be the mom and dad who want to collect, and the kid's going to go run off to the kid zone and have fun there. And I'm not sure like why we wouldn't want to have an activity that combines those two things together. And they don't really talk about that. Maybe that's something like with breaking or some event, maybe one of the workshops will do that. But I just feel like that's going to be interesting. Maybe that's what the top booth is going to do. I don't know. They don't give too much detail. But it's funny to me is to try to be like, because in the interview with Jeff Wilson, he says, like, yeah, they're going to break up. They're going to have kids over here, dad over here. And that's how we kind of planned it. It seems odd to me to break that up, because most people who collected, that was handed down as a family, it was always an event or something you did together with your dad, right, or your parent, right. Most people who have this shared experience with a parent don't remember doing it separately. They remember going to shows together, collecting together, opening packs together. It was like together, not apart, together. So I find that odd. So we'll see if there's going to be more events that can be done together or promote that kind of parental relationship building event. And then last is just, this showed, in my opinion, if you really look at who's going to be there, how they're promoting it, the lifestyle and all this stuff, thing is this is basically Fanatics brand palooza. We're going to show off our licenses, we're going to show off our properties, we're going to show off tops, we're going to show off our Fanatics Superstore, we're going to show people how cool we are and everything we do, and like it's a funnel, into Fanatics. It's all about Fanatics, Fanatics, Fanatics. It doesn't seem to be a lot about the hobby, honestly. It's kind of a beating my chest, showing how cool we are type of event to just say how cool Fanatics is and look at all the stuff that we have. And maybe they'll prove me wrong. And I think that would be interesting if it's actually less in your face about Fanatics and more in your face about collecting the hobby and things like that. But if you really look at everything on here, if you look at the guest, because some of these guests are going to be in New York, or sorry, at the National, like I know Cal Ripken and Barry Sanders are. So, I think even maybe Peyton Manning. So it's like you've got kind of like these two competing shows. One of them is just super collector focused. The other one is event and experience focused. And is there room for both? Sure. But it'd be interesting to me to see like the difference, like the take that hardcore collectors are going to have on this experience. Because again, from my take, as a hardcore collector, do I want to waste time going to panels, going to workshops, doing things that take away from time on the floor to make deals, or time I can be in line at Tops to get something exclusive, like to do the things that I'm there for, which is collecting? Am I going to really do those other events to really take away from that experience? I don't know. And are those experiences worth it? So this is going to be a great litmus test. It's going to be the first kind of, can the hobby do something different? And will that grow the hobby? Will the hobby be indifferent? Or will some people just be like, I don't really like it? Because at the Comic-Con level, there is a lot of rejection of the Comic-Con current format by a lot of hardcore collectors, because what it's done is those 350 booths are, let's say that's the Comic-Con, you got arts and crafts, you got artists, you've got toys, you've got a bunch of non-comic book people there set up. And at a lot of Comic-Cons I go to, they outnumber the comic dealers 2 to 3 to 1. So it's not really a comic show anymore. It's a bunch of other stuff, and then you call it like pop culture or whatever. But it'd be interesting to see how this show evolves. Is it going to be basically like, a sports card show or a collectible card show? Is it going to turn into some sort of like a toy, shoe, apparel, mix mash of stuff show? I think Atlanta, the Culture Collision kind of promotes that. I don't know. It'll be fun to see. But the hardcore collectors in comics have rejected some of the Comic-Con format, and they've actually created new shows that basically only focus on comics. And, it'll be interesting to see how this, is received, because the National really is that. And is there space for something else? Oh, sure, there is. But how will it be accepted? And how will it grow the hobby? So that's remained to be seen. But it's a very interesting, I call it exercise for Fanatics to take under. But I do feel like, this is the playbook they've been talking about forever, since they really started this process. So here's the fruition of it. Here's like the grand scheme, the experiences to get newbies in and convert them and all that. So we'll see if it works. We'll see how this experiment pays off. Let me know your thoughts down below, and if you're going to attend, I may go, and I may actually have room to take people with me if you want to go. I live in New York, so if share a hotel or something, hey guys, I'm pretty open. So but I've actually traveled quite a bit with other people to shows before, so it's kind of fun. But let me know if you're going to go. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time on Cards and Comics. Bye.